Good morning. Let me start by acknowledging what an honor it is to serve in this incredible pulpit. This church has blessed me immensely over the last several years. I know the legacy and the history that is felt by so many of you. To those for whom Riverside is not a regular stop, I encourage you to just sit with the awesome power that comes from just being in this beautiful sanctuary and admiring the impressive architecture and the fixed fittings. I also will remind you that the real benefit of experiencing something so sacred is the transformation that takes place outside of this holy space. You, dear ones, create the magic that is so important to what makes a truly progressive place enliven and move forward. I'm humbled for many reasons, but as a proud graduate of Morehouse College, and having just, I heard the laughter, somebody got that, and just celebrating the national anniversary of our most famous alum, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, I hold tightly that it was in this space on April 3rd, 1967, that he stood and preached on his concern and opposition to the Vietnam War. It was a time when many said he would fall out of favor and his engagements to speak would dry up and that he might become irrelevant. And yet in this very hall, his voice cried out as a witness in speaking truth to power. As we kick off the celebration of Black History Month, what an incredible honor it is for me to be a witness today. I know that Pastor Amy is traveling, so I hope the live stream is working. I want her to hear my thanks and the profound humility this preaching moment affords. I'm very grateful. Now I'll ask that you pray with me. God of our weary years and our silent tears, we thank you for the opportunity to bear witness to what is just and holy, not for ourselves, but the betterment of the creation we steward. Bless us now. Give us strength and power along with humility to be the change you have called us to make in the world that so desperately needs you. In the name of Jesus, amen. I had a few immediate thoughts when I heard this word that was before me in the preaching moment. And one was the reminder of the spiritual. My soul will be a witness for the Lord. Now, I would love to sing it, but I think not only would this wonderful choir recoil, but you, my dear friends, might also cry to the Lord that the heavens be opened and my voice be silenced as the night closes the night quickly with the sun. No, I will not sing. But I think it's fitting to understand my desire to cry aloud when juxtaposed to our writer Jeremiah's reluctance to preach. The text for the morning tells us clearly that Jeremiah looked for excuses to avoid the call God had placed on him. Bible commentators talk about this wrestling that Jeremiah did as he sought to negotiate. But basically, God said, check it out. Look, I know you. I created you. And you can talk all you want to about how young you are and how words may fail, but I have a message, and you're going to deliver it. You, dear one, will be my witness. We'll go on to learn that Jeremiah would have many conversations with God about his prophetic ministry, and on so many occasions would the theme repeat. Each time, even in his frustration, they would get to the place where the struggle truly brought a level of understanding, not just of the relationship with God, but his own relationship to his calling. My friends, as we listen to the word, I'll invite you to think about the space of invitation as a call on your life. What are you witness to? When the quiet is all about you and no one will understand that still small voice inside of you, what will you declare and name as that thing you cannot shake? Where will your heart be filled up in, like Jeremiah or even Dr. King? What do you see that you know you must stand for? We know from the reading that Jeremiah had a particular call. He was set apart. In many ways, this is where we find ourselves, often set apart and unclear, but the truth, that stuff we heard about last week commissions us to be real. Often we call it bringing our whole selves to the conversation. The other evening, I asked my spouse, what do you think about when you hear the word witness? What comes to mind? He started by saying it's someone who tells the truth about what they've seen. I prodded for more, and he says, a witness is also one who accounts for something that has happened. I wanted even more, and he said, it's someone who corroborates or affirms that which was attested to is true. Alas, I stopped with the prodding. In the moments before the sleep fell heavy, I knew that this word, witness, served as a verb. What we do as action. But I also understood it as a noun. What we be. Again, I ask the question of each of us, to what do we bear witness? What issue of justice makes us whole? What actions do we take? And what existence do we want to create? To be. This week we learned of more shocking stories of racial distress. A sitting governor was outed for having a yearbook picture displaying on his page. One person in blackface and the other in a Klan outfit. He didn't identify which he is, although he did say he was in the picture. Well, that's when I wrote the story, the sermon on Friday or Saturday. And of course, it continues to evolve. This is 1984. He was 25 years old at the time. He's also a pediatrician, a healer of children, and a medical doctor. And my first reaction was, wow. I now sit with the pain that many of us feel in the hubris it takes to stay in place after such an indicting part of character or behavior has been displayed. We'll see how the story moves on, but what a revelation that splinters so many people of goodwill. Situations like this constantly remind us that our legacy of racism isn't as far away as we want it to be. And this, my friends, was on Friday, the very first day of Black History Month. Attending the Human Rights Campaign dinner last night, I kept hearing references to the attacks on LGBTQ people in politics in real time. Particularly, there are numerous attacks on the transgender community, and their exploitation goes so unnoticed that it barely registered. To be clear, I didn't need the dinner to tell me this, but it was a powerful motivator regarding what is at stake. My sister, Beverly Tillery, leads the Anti-Violence Project, which advocates and educates about the trauma in the LGBTQ community. And their work seems to constantly stand in the foreground of the sadness felt by so many because of who they are. Her work reminds us daily of the assaults that happen to people constantly for just who they be as people. I could go on, and these stories we all can agree are heinous. We're praying for victims' atrocities every single day. I bear witness to the fact that while it isn't always easy, we call on the ancestors and stand on what I know to be the truth. God created us all equally. The darkness comes and pain is present, and with all of that, I rejoice in the notion that God calls each of us equally to bear witness to God's truth of our common humanity. In these beautiful surroundings, I hope most of us who witness evil displayed like the more sensational stories would name it and call it out. But the truth of the task in Jeremiah's life, as it is in our own, is that witnessing against power isn't always easy or obvious. When our lives are pretty good and we can pay our bills, we may not be as keen to speak so boldly. And yet the wrestling Jeremiah did may be ours too. One of the struggles that made Jeremiah special is that he came from a clan that was powerful. They were educated and priestly. Some commentators have argued that because Jeremiah was from this lineage, he may very well have known that even before he wrestled, ultimately his calling was to be in the fray and to speak truth to power. In this series of sermons, one of the questions that is asked is, how did the ups and downs of their experiences mirror corporate pain we are feeling today? I couldn't help reading this lesson and reflecting on how closely it feels like what so many of us are protesting against today with systems that are terribly corrupt. We have language to call out sexism that runs rampant, or racism, or xenophobia, and ableism. Our voices cry against injustice on so many levels, and it feels like it's never ending, exhausting, and for too many of us, not new at all. Tiring and repetitive. We're sick of arguing with God and humanity about the fact that we are sick and tired. And yet, glimmers of hope continue to appear just when we need them. When I joined this church, it was the first time I contemplated truly being a part of a multiracial congregation. Growing up in Memphis, Tennessee, I visited many places of worship with my parents. I was a member of the National Conference of Christians and Jews. And so at an early age, I understood interfaith relationships. At the end of the day, I was always centered, and I knew that I would be in a traditionally black church. It was just that simple. I love the cadence and traditions, and the people feel like home. However, as I've shared with Amy, there were so many personal reasons that continue to draw me here. The welcome mat was extended in ways large and small beyond anything I could have ever completely described. At the time, Dr. Forbes was preaching, and he's a spiritual mentor to me and someone I watched as a young man and have truly admired for over 30 years. Having gone to get a good religious education at Duke University, I knew names like Fosdick and Coffin. But in this space, I have seen the witness of people of all races and creeds who understand that if we're going to be better, we must do better. I see my family and close friends who remind me that a commitment to love and social justice requires us to stretch to what is uncomfortable and demand that the truth of who we are is ever present. In showing up, we express and bear witness that the church, God's church, is for all of us. We declare that while we celebrate the unique heritage of many people, it cannot be to the exclusion of any people. That's hard work. But you got to be in it to win it. And in this community here at Riverside, it means with a myriad of people of different hues and heritages, and I believe God is more than pleased with that. I so love preparing for this lesson today. One of my favorite scriptures is from the book of Jeremiah, although it isn't in this pericope. It's in the 29th chapter, and it says in the 11th verse, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." When I made a career move recently, I had this verse in my mind several times. It came up in odd conversation and was even the theme of a lovely journal that was given to me by a former colleague and friend. What an affirmation it is, and the witness, my friends, is that we are all invited to great plans. We all have a testimony and be witness to transformation that can be beyond anything we imagined. Even when the signs are dreary, the winds are cold, and the sun ain't bright, we will witness, and we will be witness to great works. You have the tools to write a new chapter, and I pray that you are encouraged to do just that and be just that. Amen? And a woman too.